Albert Einstein said, "In the midst of every crisis lies great opportunity." There is no question that we are in the midst of a health and an economic crisis, a crisis that was not foreseen and predicted. This pandemic, yielding unique opportunity, may be more important than ever. President JFK, that's JF Kennedy, suggested that out of crisis can emerge new and incredible opportunities, particularly if traditional approaches and paradigms are questioned and challenged. During a crisis, incentives and motivations change, potentially leading to a new cooperative behavior and even to the creation of new systems or structures. Crisis can get the collective adrenaline flowing, focusing minds on solving the problem at hand. Has this pandemic caused us to see new ways of seeing, thinking, and doing? Very few of us escaped COVID-19's financial turbulence. Over the past 12 months, only China's economy grew. Everywhere else, stock markets cratered, businesses chartered, and unemployment rates climbed to new highs. Are the various tiers of government in Nigeria turning this challenge into opportunity for us to emerge as a greater nation, as other countries such as the US did after the Great Depressions of the 1930s, by creating a richer and more equitable society? Cuba, for example, is opening its economy amid the crisis and starting its final stage trials of 2 homegrown COVID vaccines, which, if successful, will boost an economy mired in economic and financial crisis. How are Nigerian businesses reimagining and creating local solutions that are globally accepted? Can we turn this pandemic into prosperity? This is COVID Crisis, 1 year on, counting the cost, the public dialogue. Good morning, I am Nancy Naji. Welcome to the Moneyline with Nancy special series on the COVID crisis, 1 year on. Today is the last of the series, which we started last Friday. We will focus on what opportunities that this pandemic year, which we entered last year and we're still in, has created. My guest, Nkechi Oguchi, the Managing Director of Venture Spark, a company that is a community that make dreams turn into reality, is with me here in the studio. Also joining me is a cross-section of Nigerians from different parts of the country and different sectors. I must say welcome to all of you. Nkechi, welcome to the program, and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me here.
All right. I would say to all of you right now, you can all join this conversation by following us on all our social media platforms, on Twitter, Moneyline TV, on Facebook and Instagram, as well as YouTube. We are Moneyline with Nancy TV. Great insights for you on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe. Also follow me on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, all at Nancy Ilo. Let's take a listen to this Vox Pop by Nigerians on the opportunities acquired within the last 1 year of COVID-19 in the country. Take a listen.
The world has really changed, and we should really embrace the digital platform and go digitalized. Nigeria is a country that's really behind in that aspect, and we need to come up in that aspect. That's really what I learned from COVID-19. Secondly, I learned from COVID-19 that we also can do business from home. All of us can do business from our various homes. We don't necessarily need to come out for business every day. You know, the world has gone that far, and we should also go along with it.
It was also an opportunity to step into the new phase where the world is heading to, like several technologies like touchless technologies and also digitization. It also hastening the government's plans to go digital.
No, the issue really is COVID-19 is not a Nigerian issue alone. It's a global issue. You can see yourself, you know, everywhere is affected. and every sector of the economy is paralyzed to the extent that people are just managing to survive. You understand? And I wouldn't say the government has not done a lot about it, but some of us, we don't really believe in the prevalence of this thing, the way it is celebrated here in Nigeria. But then, it is real. Everybody is covering their faces with face mask now. But in terms of job, before COVID, Nigeria had the problem of unemployment of the youth, especially. But many businesses have closed down. Some are just operating for the symbolic, meaning of it. And for future, to prevent it, the bad wagger effect of COVID on the economy and the generality of Nigeria.
All right, so welcome back. This is COVID crisis 1 year on counting the cost, the public dialogue. Like I said during the intro, this is the last of the series which we started last Friday and, took it to almost the end of the other week after Friday. And today we'll be looking at turning this pandemic into prosperity. We'll be looking at how, even though we are in a crisis mode, can opportunities be created. Before the break, I introduced my guest. Nkechi Oguchi is the managing director at Venture Spark. Welcome again, Nkechi. And over here, I have an array of Nigerians joining me from different parts of the country. Of course, this is also one thing that COVID-19 did, working from home, and you can talk to anybody from anywhere around the world. So welcome to you all again on Zoom. I can see you all, and I'm waving back. Thank you. Now let's get started with you, Nkechi. Let me start with this question. Did we really need the crisis to jolt us out of our comfort zone as a nation, also as a people?
Well, I wouldn't say we needed the crisis. I mean, when you see all that we've lost from lives to businesses, I wouldn't say that we needed the crisis, but the crisis acted as an accelerant, a catalyst for so many things that were already supposed to happen. And yeah, that is a good thing, and people were able to find opportunities in the crisis, but I wouldn't say that, the crisis is a wonderful thing that happened, but I'm happy that we're able to make the most of it.
Okay. Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us. In case you're wondering, you've just seen Nancy, even after the vaccinations or the launch of the COVID vaccines today. Welcome to COVID Crisis 1 year on Counting the Cost, the public dialogue. We're live right now on television after we just saw what happened. The president will take the live since tomorrow. But today on the program, we will be talking about turning opportunities, turning the crisis into opportunities. We know that Albert Einstein did say that in every crisis lies an opportunity. How can we turn this pandemic into prosperity? Joining me is Nkechi Oguchi, who is the managing director of Ventures Park. Ventures Park is a company that is a community where dreams are built and where dreams are created into reality. Also here, an array of my guests. Would I say guests? Guest hosts. Or what should I call them? Because they also ask questions. Array of Nigerians from different parts of the country and different sectors. Welcome again to every one of you. Okay, Nkechi, just before we came back, I want to ask you that same question which I asked earlier. Did we need this crisis to jolt us out of our comfort zones and our comfort position? Because it was like we were so used to what we now call the old normal.
Yes.
Did we really need this crisis?
Well, I wouldn't say we needed the crisis. I mean, nobody needs the crisis. You look at the loss, you look at what people have, loss of lives, loss of livelihood. We didn't need the crisis, but the crisis in itself presented a great opportunity. It acted as a catalyst to accelerate technology, to accelerate different types of work style. And I'm happy that we're able to find opportunities in the midst of the crisis.
The other question now for you is that even though we are in a new normal, as they say, are we still stuck in our old ways of thinking and doing the new things in an old way? We've seen even the crisis presenting dramatic policy shifts. And, you know, when COVID came or entered the country last year, we had series on the show.
Yes.
In fact, we did what we call COVID-19 watch for months
Yes.
on the show. It was like we were all talking about COVID. And
Yes.
some of the things that also came up during the discussion last year was that how do we turn this crisis into an opportunity? And one of the things that came to my mind at that time was what in the 1930s, in the United States of America, when President FDR, Franklin Roosevelt, was confronted with the Great Depression of the 1929s to 1930s. And he came up with a plan known as the New Deal, which even successive governments after that have taken as an emergency response. So are we seeing that perhaps in our country, or did COVID-19 make us still do things, being stuck in our old ways and doing new things in an old way?
So everyone was differently equipped for the pandemic that happened. Every nation, every business were differently equipped. And the nations that are ahead and the businesses that are ahead are the ones that were able to be agile and resilient. So how were they quickly able to change things and to adapt was really important. I don't think Nigeria as a country adapted as quickly as they should have. It felt like we were watching what other people were doing and trying to copy some of the things that they were doing. I don't think it was as contextualized for our environment as it should have been. I mean, look at the case of how we handled the lockdown. I don't think Nigeria was designed very well to handle that kind of a situation. You're trying to lock down the country. Some people aren't getting the right information. Some people aren't well equipped. People are not well, they're not giving any support. So it's all different. But now we are beginning to create some policies. I mean, just looking at the Finance Act and the amendments that were made, looking at some tax breaks that were given to businesses, we're trying to respond, but we're not being agile. Even countries that went into developing vaccines, and we're playing on the sideline and watching all of these things happen. So, but people are responding in two ways. One, people are seeing that these things have changed forever and I need to adapt. And some people are waiting for things to go back to the way they were. But things are not going to go back. Things can only move forward. And if you embrace that truth, you're better able to respond.
You know, during my intro, and we didn't take that on live TV, but I know that in days to come, we're still going to play back for our audience so that you can catch the full show. Very instructive for me is the country called Cuba.
Yeah.
You know, when we talk about Cuba, a lot of people say, okay, they've advanced in medical sciences and all of that. Cuba is a country that we know that the economy is not as robust as possible. But what Cuba is doing right now is, number one, is opening it up its economy because it's also dependent on tourism. The other thing by which it wants to boost tourism, creating homegrown solutions. Cuba is in the final trial stage of having his own homegrown vaccines.
Yes.
So have we seen an emergence of new talents in Nigeria? Have we seen an emergence of new skills, set of skills that have come up as a result of COVID-19? Perhaps individuals, businesses, as well as government.
So Cuba is a special case. Even before the pandemic, they have a more advanced medical medical background when you look at Cuba itself. When you look at nations and specializations, you would see that countries that already have very good medical foundation, very good research foundation, very good educational system that bring out people that are able to do this research, they're the ones that advanced when it came to the medical part and the medical side of things. That's not Nigeria. That's not our specialization, unfortunately.
What are we specialists
What are we specialists in? We're still trying to figure it out.
There was a time football. I don't know if we're... What are we really known for?
So that's a good question. That's a good question. And we're all still trying to figure out what we are good for. There's great potential in the country. And even if you look at this professor, Michael Porter, and when he did a study on what makes a competitive nation, there are certain factors that must align to make a competitive nation. And I think Nigeria has to go deep into that. And that's something I'm actually studying as well, looking at if Nigeria were to be competitive in an area, what area would it be? What are we best equipped for to be able to do that? But in looking at responding and how people have been able to develop skill sets, I think people did it outside of government support. They did it as individuals. Some companies had some tools that they were just able to retool a little bit and make the most of it. You look at companies like 54Gen or MDAS, people in that health tech kind of line, and they were able to get certain support, certain funding to be able to provide health solutions in the form of tracking people that were infected, tracking people that were at high risk, being able to do contact, all those kinds of things that they were able to do, but they had a level of foundation already. So they just retooled their system to do that. We don't have enough people doing research. And then for businesses individually as well, they were looking at what the demand was saying. Where was the trend going to? What were the customers, what were the community saying? And some were agile enough to respond and to create solutions that catered for what they saw as the new normal, whether it was short-lived or long-term, but some were able to do so. An example is people that started making face masks. They saw an opportunity. Yes, no.
They've not stopped.
They saw an opportunity. They know it's not a business they'll do for the next 20 years, but in the midst of this time, they can capitalize on. They started making face masks. People started making hand sanitizers. People started making actual constructed sanitization systems where you get to walk through. So they saw that opportunity and they tried to adapt with what they have as soon as they could. And I must commend the fact that they did that. So agility and resilience is really, really important. And I see Nigerians really tried because they did it without that much support. You can't look at...
Nkechi, that brings me to the question of pay stack. Because even when we were in the midst of the pandemic, and I think NSAT's story of last year, the pay stack story came, it was like, a shining light, even when the whole nation was a bit dark.
Yes.
I know your community or your company has worked with Paystack one way or the other.
Yes.
Tell people what Paystack is in case they don't even understand what I'm saying. This is a company that acquired, that got an investment of $200 million, I think, last year.
Acquired. So Paystack is a startup. I think it's about 5 or 6 years old. It's one of the companies we invested in early on when they were much younger. And they just recently, I won't say still recently, but in Q4, they got acquired by Stripe. It's a payment platform. And payment is a nightmare, especially in Nigeria and so many countries. And because of that opportunity, you see lots of fintech companies coming up. Even last year, looking at the funding report for 2020, the highest amount of funding went to fintech companies in Africa. And it was really impressive.
Even during the pandemic?
Yes, even during the pandemic, people still were able to raise reasonable amount of funding. Flutterwave raised some funding, as I think about $20 million or so, but different companies were able to raise funding, and the highest were fintech, health techs, and I think retail were able to raise a huge amount of funding. So there are good news happening in the midst of it. But the Paystack acquisition conversation didn't just start last year. I mean, it's a company that has been watched and monitored by different companies, especially Stripe. Paystack has always positioned themselves as the Stripe for Africa, and they positioned themselves really well to be acquired. And the fact that the acquisition was able to happen and close was such a good news for the tech ecosystem in seeing that kind of success. And it just shows you that if Nigeria is better structured to enable businesses, and we have this kind of acquisitions or mergers that are happening, it's good inflow of money into the Nigerian economy. And these companies are supposed to pay tax, and they get to pay tax, and that's good revenue sources. So it's good business for the government to enable the private sector.
Okay, let me leave you for a bit. Let me move over to our online participants. Hello, guys, and I hope you're still there. How many of you who own businesses were able to innovate, were able to reimagine your businesses? I remember yesterday on the program, I can't remember who said that. Is it Chika, Engineer Chika, that said she started making sanitizers during the pandemic? You know, so how many of you who own businesses were able to innovate? And can you tell me what your experiences are? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let me move over to Chioma Gregory, who is the CEO of the Greg Foods, to speak to us. Unmute yourself quickly.
Okay. Hello, Nancy.
Hi.
Okay, so during the pandemic, I teach people how to make cakes. I make cakes for a living, and I realized I was not able to get students to come over to my studio to learn how to make cakes. Okay, so what I started doing was I started doing online classes, and I also started writing a book. I've currently finished writing a book, and it's published on Amazon, and I'm about to print out the hard copy. And so that's one of the things that COVID-19 did for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's take someone else. How has COVID-19 made you shift from the traditional responses which we're used to? Who else wants to speak to me on that? How has it made you innovate, even as a person? Are you doing things the old way? Yes, hello, hi. Who's speaking to me now?
Hello,
Tessie.
hi.
Yes, okay, Tessie. Tessie, go ahead, please.
Tessie.
Yes.
All right, so I own a beauty school, and you know that in order for us to be more effective, our practicals have to be like physical because we deal with lasers, electrotherapy equipment. So what we had to do was that we kind of take the theoretical part online. Then we create like 5 students in a class for them to come in for their practicals, because there is no how we could teach, for example, like waxing, you know, different hair growth direction for different people. So you have to see that, you have to have hands-on practice in order, you know, to be able to take as much customers as possible. So COVID has made me to actually find a way of taking my courses online, though not completely, also having short courses, which normally is diploma that we're having for months, like courses of 3 to 4 months. But now you can actually take the basics online. Then if you want to go ahead, you can walk into the school premises to take your course.
Okay. One last person before I move over to Nkechi over there. One last person. The guys, where are you? Where are the men? I know that Women's Day is on Monday, so I don't want to do a Women's Day today. I want to do it on Monday. Where are the guys? Okay, Ofonime, I can see your hand. And okay, after Ofonime, then George. Yes, I know it's Women's Day on Monday. We'll celebrate on Monday. Okay, Ofonime.
Hello, good morning.
Morning, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you so much for this opportunity given. I am a teacher, though I'm also involved in business. My private teaching lesson had upgraded from the physical one we used to do, the classroom, to the online class. And so being able to incorporate the Google suits and use the Google Classroom to attend to students had been of immense experience. To me, it's only that it's not all my parents, or the parents that I have, that I've been able to reach out to because of the cost of having to do that. But I believe that it will fall in well properly.
Okay. All right, George, it's your turn now. You were talking when Ofonime was talking. Now, this is your time. I was hearing you. So go ahead, quickly, 20 seconds. How has this pandemic, how do you see it as an opportunity?
Thank you, Nancy. It has really been a great opportunity since I'm into the real estate sector.
Oh.
At first, you need to be able to take people on site to see properties to buy, but now it's more easy. It's becoming a normal that people can stay even in America, and they have trust in you because of the COVID-19. They have trust in you that you can sell them property online without them necessarily coming on site. So it has really helped me. We bought a lot of properties this year, and we were really into business. In short, this COVID-19 was a plus to us.
Oh, okay. So you're among those that brought out the country out of recession because the real estate sector did well. I'll come back to you guys later. Let's quickly move over to Nkechi. Very instructive there. Ofonime, a teacher, and we know that teaching industry or the schooling industry had to reimagine itself because a lot of people started homeschooling. Some people still even have a party, they don't want to go back to school yet or even send their children. So generally speaking, how can we turn this pandemic into prosperity? Have we seen more retooling? Have we still seen more imaginations from private businesses than the government itself? We should also set the pace and, you know, give us the policy that would enable businesses and individuals even beyond the pandemic.
Yes. So a lot of private businesses have really had to innovate and find ways to do their business. I mean, you heard all the examples that people talked about. And what we're seeing is people embracing more digital and virtual tools. People creating more virtual content and people getting accustomed or used to consuming things virtually. So now there's online shopping. People are more comfortable shopping online than they were before. If you just take it back just 5 years ago, there was not enough trust even to buy online. Look at companies like Konga and Jumia when they started. People didn't even trust them enough to be able to do business with them online. But there's a better trust system between buyers and sellers, and people are able to buy from Instagram, people are able to buy from so you see people shopping online, you see people using virtual tools. In the education sector, people started creating more content, learning content, and there were platforms that supported this, where you could have online courses, online classrooms. And this allowed people to be able to learn at home, whether adults or kids. For kids, it wasn't easy because, you know, it meant that the parents had to be there, and parents were strained and tired having to do this, and they're like, well, when can these kids just go back? And it's not easy. But we saw that more people were doing things virtually and learning, and we saw a hybrid type of work, like the beautician who talked about. They had the theoretical online and they had physical classes. So you see that kind of hybrid model as well that people are able to adopt. I wouldn't say that the government has set the best example in this, just looking at the NIN registration and how that could have been a great opportunity to have gone virtual. But then you demanded that everyone come physically to a space.
And they're still adamant with putting that policy in place.
And that is something that could easily be digitized. That is something that you could easily use technology to enable. There are so many processes that could be better done with technology. So leading by example is really good. Another thing is looking at the infrastructure in place to support this. We don't have a robust infrastructure to support digital or virtual type of work. Look at the basic things you need: electricity and good internet. And it's not evenly distributed. Electricity is not reliable. Internet is not also reliable. So if you're looking at competing on a global scale, that already puts us at a disadvantage when you compare to countries that have these infrastructures that are better designed. So yes, the private sector, they've tried to be as resilient as possible, from small businesses to larger businesses. The response obviously has been different depending on how much of a cushion they had. So when the pandemic started and the lockdown happened and some businesses could not earn, some companies had better variance. They had more surplus cash that they could manage to burn through until they were able to stand better. And some companies didn't, and they ended up having to fold shop. But I'm happy to see that lots of people have found ways to recover.
What kind of youths or what kind of young people would you see us producing, perhaps in the next 2, 3, 4 years? I remember even during the lockdowns, we had a town hall here in AIT for a couple of weeks. I think about 6 weeks or so, we did the town halls focusing on different things. And I remember one of those that I moderated, I spoke with the founder of Flutterwave, now the founder of Future Africa, Inyoluwa, yes, Aboyeji. He's moved on to different businesses.
Yes, he has
definitely. And I asked him then, I remember very well, I asked him the question, what kind of startups are we going to see during this pandemic and moving on? And he told me quite a lot. And I'm beginning to see them now.
Yes.
So, but the question to you is that what kind of young people will this pandemic produce in terms of agility, in terms of resilience, in terms of thinking, in terms of creative ways? Because it seems the old normal is boring.
The old normal is past.
The old normal is past.
Yes.
And boring is not a new way to do things anymore. So what kind of young people, what kind of businesses would you see moving forward?
So looking at the mindset of a young person, now they are really thinking critically about the future of work. First, a lot of people were laid off in their companies, which created a lot of insecurity amongst them. And it made them question, what skills do I have that will set me up for the future of work? And there are certain skills that have become, they are now obsolete. Yes, there are certain skills that become obsolete, and there are certain skills that are being emerging. Like now, a contact tracer was not a thing. Like a COVID contact tracer did not exist, and now it exists as a job, as an opportunity, you know? So they are trying to position themselves better, and they are learning more. So people are trying their best to learn as quickly as they can to be able to position themselves for the future of work. And I feel that also in looking at how technology has allowed us to connect better, the way people see work is changing. So now I do not need to work in an office to work. I can work anywhere in the world. So it means I can be in Lagos and work for a company in Chicago. And I could work for multiple companies. That's what's happening now. People are no longer, you don't need to be contracted to just one company. You are now becoming like a consultant of your own skill, and you can give it to so many companies because there are tools that allows you to do that. So the way people are seeing work is changing. The way people are seeing the necessary skill set they need is changing. And that is changing the kinds of businesses that are being formed and the kind of environments that are being formed as well. And in looking at just sectors that are booming because of COVID, yes, health tech is coming up more, fintech as well, because we need to be able to make those transactions as easily as possible, retail as well. But it's going to keep changing. So this is what's happening now. But in 10 years, it's going to change because the rate of change is very short these days. It's really, really short. So this could be what's happening now, and in 10 years, it's completely different.
Even my own industry has changed.
Absolutely.
Broadcasting changed in the sense that I don't need someone to even be physically here in the studio. I'm speaking with you, and I'm speaking to tens of people across Nigeria or even the world. And even the way we also do our programming, I remember even during the pandemic, some of my colleagues abroad that were even at home doing their programs from home.
Exactly.
You see children and everything
moving around.
It's taken now as normal that you can be a wife, you can be a mother, you can also be a career person, all at the same time, and you're not being stigmatized for that. So I think COVID is also doing that. Have we learned COVID lessons? Because this show, this show about that we've had in the last 1 week, it's about 1 year on. Where were we? Where are we now? Where are we going to? Have we learned the lesson? Do you think we've learned COVID lessons?
I think some people have. Looking at it from a national level, I think some countries have, and they would put things in place. Maybe fund the NCDC better, you know. Some countries will do that. They would try to put measures in place because a pandemic like this can happen again. This is not the last of it. It has happened in the past, and it can happen again. My sister is an epidemiologist, and she told me when she was in school, one of their professors had said that the world is overdue for a pandemic.
Really?
And it was a weird thing to her to have heard, but it's the fact. They track
so
these
it's like
things
the pandemic is like a reset.
It has to happen, yes. It happens from time to time. It's just what history has.
Is it every 100 years?
It could be shorter, depends, So it happens from time to time, and the world has to prepare. So some nations are going to try to invest more in being more prepared. And then in the business side of it, some businesses will invest more in seeing this, being able to build a better risk management system, in looking at contingency planning, business continuity planning, in making sure that you have enough buffer in your business so that no matter what, you have enough runway. So some people have learned, and even looking at the sensitivity of your revenue source. So for businesses that had unitary revenue sources that were hit so hard, for them it was really difficult because they couldn't
So you have
earn.
to diversify.
So some companies are now looking at how do I diversify? How do I
Income.
de-risk by diversifying and making sure that I'm able to do this? And being able to do different scenario plannings to ask what would happen if so and so happens. Look at the airline industry, how they were so badly hit, and it's said that they're not going to be able to recover fully in the next 2 or 3 years. They were so badly hit by it. But then there are winners like Zoom who were able to capitalize on it.
I saw Zoom's results.
Yes.
Earnings 3 days ago, so I was like, what?
Yes.
You
They
know?
were able to, even this Clubhouse, I don't think without the pandemic they'll be as popular as they are right now. So it's all about, some have learned from it and some people have not learned from it.
Has our government learned?
Well, we'll find out soon enough.
Okay, guys, coming back to you. Deborah is waving her hand. Deborah, unmute yourself and quickly speak to me in 20 seconds because we'll soon end the show.
Good morning, Nancy.
Good morning.
And what I have to say is you ask what kind of youth would COVID-19 pandemic produce? If you follow very well, during the lockdown, there was one of our youths that produced a local ventilator for COVID-19 victims, and it worked well. I watched it on the news. Then on the other hand, I also saw a minor that produced a local rocket launcher. And I don't know if such people are being encouraged, because since then we no longer hear anything from them again. Then other thing you said is, have we learned COVID-19 lesson? Nancy is a capital yes, because people are now being prudent on learning and people are now going more into diversification.
Okay, thank you. Who else again? What has COVID-19 taught you? Let me reframe the question. For me as a person, even during the lockdown, it taught me that I could do a lot. I could do without a lot of things.
Yes.
I could do without even going to the salon every 1 week, even as a TV personality. You know, I did my hair, I did my nails at home. I could save a bit of money. Yeah. It also taught, I think, a lot of people financial prudence.
Yes.
So what has it taught you as a person? Okay. Who else? Okay, Victoria, I can see you very quickly. Unmute yourself.
Actually, as a person, Nancy, good afternoon. Abby, good morning.
Go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead, Victoria. Yes, I can.
Okay. Actually, I personally, it has taught me to be prudent. It has taught me to be more caring. And it has taught me to have more time for my family as a journalist.
Yeah.
I learned working from home. And actually, I work with the youths as a journalist. I produce a talk show. So it has made me to realize the feelings of the youth around me, because you discover the frustration in the life of the youth as a person, and then you discover that as an adult, it's not only you that gets frustrated, but the frustration of the youth is more. So I've come to understand how to deal with the youth in a more caring way, to bring them out of that frustration, and also to talk about what kind of youth we are producing during this period. When they are locked in, you discover that these youths have, sat down and told themselves that they need to regenerate. Okay. They need to give themselves an orientation to change their way of living. So they have become more innovative.
Thank you very much, Victoria, for that. Nkechi, finally, what else do you have to say? Even as we're still battling this pandemic, the vaccines are here. The rollout has started. The president will receive his tomorrow. Our frontline health workers are receiving theirs, I think, from today. How should we go on?
So I would always say we should start from a place of optimism and gratitude. Let's not look at the future with bleak eyes and thinking that, oh, it's so horrible. Maybe you lost your job or your business hasn't done so well. Let's imagine a future that is bright, a future that is good. And I know it's not easy, especially coming from the NSARS and everything that's happened. But let's first imagine a future that is good, a Nigeria that is good, and then ask, how can we create that future? The pandemic, eventually, everything would come and go. Its effect would still remain, and we should prepare for that. But we should now we should better position ourselves to build a better country, to build a better business, a more resilient business. And that's what I would say.
Thank you very much, Nkechi. Like what Victoria said, it also made us care more.
Yes.
be our brother's keeper more.
Yes.
And it also made us have time for family more,
Yes.
because a lot of people were locked down.
Yes.
Even though there were advantages, there were also disadvantages. But perhaps the advantages were even more, even away from the disease, because in a crisis comes an opportunity.
Yes.
And that's what we're discussing. So thank you, Nkechi, for
Thank
joining
you for
us
having me.
today. I've been speaking with Nkechi Oguchi, who is the managing director of Venture SPAC. We've been talking about the opportunity in this pandemic crisis, what we've seen at least in the last 1 year. Thank you again to my online participants. You've been so super and amazing in the last 1 week. I see all your messages on WhatsApp. I wanted to acknowledge all of them today. Thank you that you acknowledge the work which we did in the last 1 week. Thank you all. I see your messages. Thank you all. And a super thank you also to the team that we've been able to put this together in the last 1 week. You all have been so amazing. We're talking about opportunity in a crisis. We're talking about having a vision. And when we had the vision of doing this together, we had to put a team together to get it actualized. So thank you all. To my director, Wale Peters, thank you, you're super. To my audio guys, thank you. To my Moneyline with Nancy team, research what we've done for the last 1 week. I appreciate all of you. To all our guests that have been with us since last Friday, thank you. And if I have not mentioned you, it's not that I forgot, but we just have to go. I appreciate all of you. We'll see you again on Monday, where we return to our normal programming, where I track economy and finance. As always, be the best you can be the change you want to see. And I wouldn't forget to thank Africa Independent Television, Ubunge Station. I'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you for watching our video. Please hit the subscribe button below, turn on post notification to follow all our updates.